Knowing a good source is hard for most people. Let's learn some techniques to help us find out what news is really true and what's fake news. If I start typing 2 letters and the very first thing that's being searched for in Google is was coronavirus created in a lab, let's use that. I've seen this circulating online. There are certain things that we can use that Google offers us, such as search limiters up at the top, and we can think about the sources that we have here. Are they good sources or not? What resources we can use to find those? And we can also look at the source that they're going to. So this top story, CNN, says that 30% of Americans think it was made in a lab. But they're citing a pupil. So let's look at some of those options. Okay. So first, we might want to consider just clicking on news. That's helpful. But let me tell you, not everything in this list is actually news. You also might have ads. So if it says 80, that's an ad. Don't click on that. You can also look for videos and images and things like that here. You can go to tools. You can change the type of news, how new the source is, and you can sort it in other ways too. So this is what's been posted in the last week on this topic. So how do we know what's a good source? One thing we can do is we can go to the college website and go to current students and then library. And then on the library page, there's lots of resources to help us. I'm going to have you go to subject guides. When you open that page, look for information literacy. There's 53 guides on the page. This is one for everybody. So if I go to the information literacy guide and I click on media bias, there's a couple of sources here that are really great. There's a chart that researchers created to help you. And if you look at this chart, there's a couple of things that you should pay attention to. One is down the center, it says neutral. The closest to the center, the better the source. If you go to the left or the right, they're biased. And as the more extreme you get, the less likely you should use it. Anything from skews left to skews right is okay. Down at the bottom, it's also just fake news all across either side. In the middle, it's analysis. Analysis isn't necessarily a bad thing. They're just giving their opinion on something. So anything in this green box is really what you should be using for your sources. It's not that these ones outside the box, like CNN, are necessarily bad, but they're not as good. You can also scroll to the bottom of the page, and there are lots of fact-checking sites. These are good ones to use. My favorite one is the Media Bias Fact Check site. Now, if we click on that, we can search for any of these sources. The first story was from CNN. So let's search for CNN. Okay. So it gives us a range, and we can see that CNN is left. So anything between left center and right center is okay. You want to have the least bias right in the center there. And then they tell you factual reporting. So they're mixed. That's not what you want. If we scroll down, it gives us why and the history of the source. Some of the other sources that we saw there, or that we use regularly, are like Fox News. If we search for Fox, we can see what they say about Fox. And there's other kinds of Fox, so there's going to be a list for some of these news sources. So this is right. It's outside that center, and it is also mixed. And again, we can scroll down and see the detailed report. Now, if we go back to that chart that the researchers created for us, if we look at the top, the most neutral, the most original fact reporting, the top two are AP, which is Associated Press, and Reuters. So these are the ones that you're going to want to use. As they go down, they become more analysis, not necessarily less factual, and then further down you go, the worse they are. So as you can see, things like Fox News, Daily Mail, Daily Wire, Daily Caller, can't even read this, Bipartisan Report, Daily Costs, these ones aren't good sources. So if we do our search, we sometimes want to try a different way of phrasing it. So on this search, I typed in coronavirus, and I get different results. There's some of them the same, but some are different. And I can scroll through these, and I can see a variety of things that talk about this topic. I can search each of these news sources to make sure they're good ones. So I'm going to pick this one here. Now, Vox isn't necessarily bad, but I'm going to pick Forbes. Now, if I go to the fact check site, it's going to tell me that Forbes is right biased, but high factual reporting. So if I go through this, it's going to talk about the conspiracy, and it's going to tell us what people are spreading this falsehood, and that's what it is. If you look through this, it talks about the way that they can look at the genome of the virus and tell where it came from and so forth. So if I go back to some of the other sites, I would do the same thing. I'm going to find the ones that are most factually accurate, and I'm going to click on those. So you have to go through and find those ones. Now, this is referring to the Pew poll. So I'm going to type in Pew Research poll, Americans, coronavirus. And you have to spell it correctly. So you can look through these and see what they're saying. You can look at CNN's, but why not go to Pew's to begin with? So if you go to a site and it's referring to another one, I suggest you go to the actual site to see what they're actually saying, because sometimes the news outlet isn't as reputable and they will misrepresent the research. So as you can see, there's a lot of things talking about these. U.S. News and Report, The Guardian, these are all places you can look. When you're searching, make sure that you research the place you're finding the information and cross-check it with other sources. So I can look at the CNN, but then I want to look at the Forbes and the Pew research, and I want to go through as many sources as I can until I'm certain that it's good research. If you just look at one source, you might be fooled.